Hey, Tettles, welcome here to Orgrimmar. Beautiful, quiet, the breeze you can hear, the birds chirping, as though 1,000 yelling advertisers have been silenced.
I checked trade chat. There's things such as Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker being spammed among other things.
I've learned
trade
so
chat,
much about politics.
yeah, all the best political takes from trade chat. Anyways, what we're going to talk about today, if you've been hiding under a rock, boosting communities are now prohibited in World of Warcraft. So the plagues on trade chat have been swiftly hammered down with an original post that reads, basically, I'll just paraphrase, it's saying that boosting communities are all dead. We urge all such organizations to cease doing business in World of Warcraft immediately in order to maintain uninterrupted access to the game. And they are not playing around. There's also been 2 clarification posts that Blizzard's been making to try to, because people are trying to figure out whether this impacts them, their guild, like who this is really going to be targeting. And we're going to probably see a couple more clarifications coming out in the next couple of weeks, if I had to guess.
Yeah, when this post was so the original post was actually leaked before it came out, and I didn't believe it because it was so
fake,
vague. And as you can see, it's vague enough that they've had to issue now 2 clarifications about what exactly the rules are. So the rules are you have to have anybody who's advertising has to be in, like, they have to be a participant. It's not, you can't just have advertisers, right? They have to actually be the people doing the service.
Mm-hmm.
And so that prevents you from making a bunch of alts on other servers and advertising on those servers and polluting a bunch of trade chats. And also just these communities, right? Communities that do more than just boost, but also the escrow, that kind of stuff, are being especially targeted. But guilds that are doing a boost that advertise, only their raiders advertise, should still be allowed to do that. In practice, a lot of them are getting silenced because they're getting spam reported right now. Whether that continues or not is unclear. But is that just the will of the people being plus the fact that Blizzard's customer support is all automated rather than in-person reviews, making a combo that's making the de facto rule different than the actual letter of the law?
Yeah, so personal advice, don't be spamming for boosting right now. Even if it is within the realms of the TOS, you're probably going to get silenced almost immediately. There's also been some people who have gotten even harsher punishments from like normal boosting, right? Not even just like RMT.
Right, not this is the stuff that is in theory legal, but in practice, if you get your account,
be careful,
if you get
right
reported
now
by enough people, you got, it just all automatically happens. It's not human review.
Yeah, okay, so another clarification that came through. If a guild wishes to partake in cross-realm boosting, if a guild has advertisers, this word probably in this context means like inside the guild, spamming on cross-realm for their guild sales, would that be fine? Blizzard's basically saying no, that would not be fine.
Right, so it's because it has to be by a WoW player character who intends to participate in the gameplay activities.
Yep.
So no cross-realm advertising and no advertising from non-participating players. So it's even more than just like you can't have advertisers. You also can't have your raiders creating alts on other servers and advertising for a sale that they intend to play on a different character. They have to be advertising on the character they're going to play. Now, one workaround that exists for this that we'll see if anybody actually does is once cross-realm Mythic opens up, you might see guilds spread their raiders onto a bunch of different servers and then advertise on those servers, which under the letter of the law would be allowed. We'll see if that ends up happening. If that causes another clarification.
So how do you feel about this whole thing? So for me, I think that like the intent of this seems not that bad, right? They want trade chat to be a place where it's fine. They also really weren't okay with boosting communities because I feel like a lot of times they end up going deep down this rabbit hole where they end up participating in RMT because they have jillions of gold. Where do you kind of land on this?
I think that the fact that boosting is such an important source of a guild's ability to progress the following tier is the root of the problem that should be, examined. But I'm not going to shed any tears for the state of it was just like, if you're a new player, right, and you go into a major city and just trade chat is just, it's a bad look, and I think it's nice that it's gone. I don't think anything important is going to be done in trade chat ever. It's just going to be, Thunder Fury and stuff of less merit than Thunder Fury.
Good call. Good call.
But, people like that. People like that sort of Baron's chat style of trade chat, and it's certainly, I think it has more value than the advertising spam. So I do like the impact on trade chat. I will say that the impact on like guilds that are trying to raid and don't have an easy way of sourcing buyers, such as being very famous, will have a very hard time. But I'm not in that situation.
Small realms.
Yeah, that's true. Being on like some Crush Ridge, some backwater server. Both the people on Crush Ridge are now writing angry comments below, but we can live.
I'm kind of concerned about like what the long-term economy impacts for servers are going to look like, because with the state of WoW as it currently is, legendaries are really expensive, and basically you have a couple of options. Either you're an auction house goblin, you buy a WoW token, or you participate in boosting. And it feels like those are the only real three options, whereas in the past you would be able to just like kind of passively get enough gold through doing world quests. Professions weren't as awful as they currently are, that kind of thing. But now it feels like professions are really big money sinks, and unless you're playing the auction house for a ton of gold, then there's not a lot of ways for you to have at least more mobility with your money, unless you're willing to buy WoW tokens, which I think that you shouldn't feel like you're obligated to buy a WoW token either. And so like boosting was at least in my mind, boosting was a way that normal people could like boost 15s and kind of get some gold to be able to purchase things. But at the same time, were these communities really that good for the game? Probably not.
Yeah, I think it was a flawed system that I'm glad is not going to be the system anymore. But I do think it's being replaced by another flawed system that's potentially even flaweder, especially for people in those situations where you're like you're trying to raid and you don't have an easy way to source buyers, and you still want to buy BOEs so that you can play the tier. That's I don't know. I mean, like, there's a lot of ways to fix that without bringing back boosting communities, though, such as not making it really important to buy BOEs each tier.
Yeah, I mean, with like the garrison and like the WoW token, the introduction of the WoW token, I feel like the gold is kind of consolidated, like really heavily in the high end.
The WoW token, like, I don't know, the gold value, the amount that you could print in WoD with each character that had a garrison, definitely interesting economic effects that's been done there. I don't know. It does, a lot of stuff in the game. It's pretty hard to make a lot of gold through just traditional MMO gold making stuff, right? Like herbalism, right? That kind of
killing mobs.
Yeah, like it's quite impossible to generate actual income off of doing that just normally, right? Which I do think is, something about the economy that it would be cool if it wasn't that way. But I don't know. I don't see how Blizzard could ever get it back to being like that, being where you could actually herb your way to an epic mount or whatever.
That's kind of how I feel about it too. All right. The other big piece of news for this week, absolutely massive. I don't see too terribly many downsides of this one, as much as the boosting community is kind of controversial. Cross-faction, dungeons, raids, and PvP coming in patch 9.2.5. So Wowhead has a nice summary. You can go check this out if you want a little bit more in depth. Guilds will remain single faction. So this is not going to be the thing where like you're going to have guilds that are half alliance, half horde. You're still going to have to be on one faction for mythic raiding guilds, at least. All raids, dungeons, and raided PvP will be cross-faction, barring some exceptions. Well, actually, I don't even know if Mythic. Do you know if Mythic raid is supposed to?
Mythic be is the article claims all, but I don't think Mythic is confirmed. Okay. Certainly, to get guild achievements such as Hall of Fame, you do need 16 of your 20 people to be in your guild. So and since guilds won't be cross-faction, that means at most you could have 4 people of the other faction, even if Mythic did work and you were trying to get Hall of Fame. But if you don't care about those guild achievements and Mythic is open, you could potentially have 10 horde, 10 alliance.
Yeah, I wonder how that's going to
be all in the same guild.
Yeah, I wonder maybe you'll just be able to do Mythic cross faction once that is unlocked, or like once cross realm Mythic is unlocked. Would you be able to do it with people on your same realm if you're cross? I don't know. Anyways, they'll probably have to post clarification on that. I don't know actually the specifics.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this is going to come out during farm for Sepulcher as well, right? It's going to come out in 9.2.5. So we'll see how it gets implemented there, and then how it gets implemented for progression of the following tier.
There are a couple exceptions though. Battle of Dazarlor, Icecrown Citadel, just a couple of things where I suspect probably like Siege of Borealis. There are a couple of things where there is just like unique either entrance points or boss fight order, things like that, where I don't think that Blizzard could find a good workaround. So that's just going to be completely barred outright. All of these are old world things, which sure, it sucks that you're not going to be able to participate with it in old world stuff, but for me, it's kind of something like a concession that I'm willing to make.
I mean, whatever. Like, okay, Ice Crown Citadel. You farm that by yourself anyways, right? Because you don't. It's better to do those old raids solo. So, I have absolutely no problem about that. As long as they don't make any new dungeons of the next expansion fit in that category, I'm all fine with whatever legacy content being faction restricted.
Group Finder going to be cross faction. However, the group leader may choose to restrict to the same faction if they wish. One of the big things that they were pointing out in this post is that they wanted this to be as much of an opt-in feature as possible, and I think that that's actually a pretty good design because while you and I don't care, and we're just looking for the most amount of people that we can get involved in our circles, or like more people that we want to play with. There are some people who do really care about like how the Alliance versus the Horde thing were, and making it as opt-in as possible seems pretty cool from like a player standpoint.
Yeah, I don't see why not on this. Like, it seems great. The dynamics of what people are going to do with this is definitely interesting, because a lot of cases this does open up. I think that case of like somebody who's playing Horde because their friends are Horde, or playing Alliance because their friends are Alliance, or playing Horde because like that's where you can find key groups. Those sorts of players will be able to swap now to their preferred faction, whereas before there was kind of inting to do that, right?
Yeah, and in addition to that, if for some reason you were looking for some more tangible bonuses, at least in damage or like throughput healing wise, or maybe like some tank survivability wise, you can now potentially play a more optimal racial. And like we've even seen things in the past where some high-end Mythic Plus teams, by the way, it's not like these are just like casual players. Some like high-end Mythic Plus teams will go Alliance for like Dwarf racial for Shadow Meld typically, and you'll be able to just be a Night Elf or a Dwarf the whole entire time.
Dr. J's team in BFA, right, famously, they switched every week twice.
Andy's team is Alliance right now.
Yeah, right. So teams would switch for like you'd switch twice per week, even if you were raiding, right? And now you can potentially, if you can Mythic raid cross faction, you could switch instead of twice per week, you could switch twice per patch, which is still quite a big barrier to just doing it as a normal person, but it would open it up for a lot more people than currently consider doing that sort of swap. It also means that guilds that previously like would have been interested in swapping, now you can, and as swap as a whole guild, right? And you don't lose all of those like M plus friends that aren't in the guild, all that kind of stuff. So that opens up, but you still do have to stay, presumably in the same guild, in the same faction for Mythic raid progression. So that is going to keep a cap on just how much of this gets done. Because if that restriction was moved, then yeah, you'd see a lot of M plusers just permanently playing Alliance.
I think that, and this is just like something that's being tossed in like a 9.25 patch. I suspect that maybe even in like 10.0, they're looking to maybe ease up the restrictions. I think that they could. I don't know if they necessarily will.
My prediction is it happens by 11.0, but I don't think they would do it, the following patch. But yeah, I mean, that is the thing that everybody's talking about, right? Is like the guild part of this, that it would take it so you don't have to swap, like you don't have to swap factions twice, right? Once to get back to your guild and once to swap to the other faction for during farm, that kind of thing.
It's also good for like people who want to trial in other guilds, especially if they're
exactly
cross faction. So you don't have to like burn a bunch of money to trial in a guild, that kind of thing. I think that overall this is going to be a pretty good change for the player base at large. The biggest thing is like for RP reasons, you may feel like plus or minus on it, just kind of depending on how you really feel about it.
I don't know, man. Like every single raid,
Horde and Alliance,
every single raid for the past, however many expansions has involved Horde and Alliance teaming up in the canon. So
yeah, sure.
I don't think it's anti-canon to have it happen, and that's the argument Blizzard puts forward when justifying how they're doing this. So yeah,
times change.
I think this is just great. I mean, I think this is fantastic because there are just a lot of Alliance players that don't in NA and Horde players in like Australia that don't get exposed to like the game that a lot of the other faction gets to play, right? Of like groups for content and higher key levels, that kind of stuff, more mythic raids. So
Yeah.
being able to expand your community, right, and making it so that just because you prefer dwarf and you picked it at character select, you don't end up in this spot where you just never discover that, or you get forced off of your preference choice, which, you know, eventually you might still with until guilds go cross faction, there's still going to be some degree of that if you're trying to mythic raid. But for a lot of players, this, you know, everything you'd want to do is now cross faction, and great.
All right, overall pretty good change. I'm interested to see some clarifications on like the mythic rating thing. We'll see how that ends up landing. Gallywix, or not even just Gallywix.
Gallywix has banned a year ago. Yeah,
Gallywix has been gone for a while. All the other boosting communities are also now gone. Anything else for today, Dratnos? Or is that all?
That's all I got.
All right, and we will see you guys next week. Later.